Hey guys, I'm so excited to introduce to you Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo, and she's going to be talking about how fasting affects your blood sugar, and we're going to talk everything about plant-based, keto. So let's dive in. But before we do, Dr. Ritamarie, tell listeners a little bit about you and how you've been doing intermittent fasting, and just a little bit about what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my very first fast was in 1985 or 4 or something, a long, long time ago. And it was because I was struggling with health issues and I was looking for an answer and wasn't getting it in the medical community. So I started, my first introduction to fasting was a book called The 5-Day Allergy Relief System. And they talked about doing a 5-day water fast and then reintroducing foods. And I did that and I'm like, wow, it feels really good not to eat. Wow, I feel really good this way. But then when I started to reintroduce, they didn't give very good guidelines about how to introduce food. And then I felt like garbage again. So I kept searching for answers for myself for the brain fog and the fatigue and the stomach problems and headaches and sinus problems. I was just falling apart, and I was only 26 years old. So I kept looking, and I happened on a guy in a garage where I was waiting for my tires to get rotated or something. And I was reading one of my health books, and he started talking to me about fasting. And I went, fasting? Yeah, I've done that. I thought it was great while I was fasting, but it was not so good after I started eating again. And he said, yeah, because you didn't fast for long enough. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean I didn't fast for long enough? I went without food for 5 whole days. And he said, that's not long enough. Check out this book, Fasting Can Save Your Life. Check out this place. It was a local place in Hollister, California, where they supervised fasts. And long story short, I ended up doing a fast. And I didn't tell very many people about it back then because they just thought I was anorexic. I'm going without food. I'm getting thinner. But I went to the location and did a 28-day water fast. So that was my first real introduction to fasting as a cleansing. And I was like completely healed of everything that was wrong with me. I mean, I felt better than I'd felt ever in my life. And I decided that I was going to quit my job and help other people. Well, fast forward to, 5 years later, I've graduated with a degree in chiropractic, and I'm on my way to get an acupuncture certification, and I've got a nutrition master's degree. And I start talking to people about fasting, and they think I'm a nutcase, right? So I toned it down because it wasn't popular then. But I did help lots and lots of people with their health problems, with switching their diet and all that. But I always felt like there was this one little piece that if people would embrace. So then I learned about intermittent fasting. And I loved the concept of intermittent fasting because I could get people to fast for 16 hours, 18 hours, even 24 hours. My first introduction to intermittent fasting was you go 24 hours. It was you eat dinner one day and dinner the next day. You're not even going a day without food. And that more appealed to people. And then it became popular, right, over the last few years. And people are totally open to it. The kinds of results I get with people with fasting and intermittent fasting, extended fasting and intermittent is just phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about how how fasting regulates your blood sugar. And is there any time that when you do fasting, your blood sugar may spike a little bit, or anything that you do that even while you're fasting, your blood sugar goes up?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And fasting, obviously your blood sugar is going to go down if you're not eating any food, right? Because there's nothing coming in, so it doesn't raise it. So studies show that glucose goes down, insulin levels go down, growth hormone goes up, and all these things really help to regulate the hormonal system in the body. So you see that usually with most people within less than 24 hours, within 12 to 16 hours. And, at about 16 hours is when really good autophagy, which is the eating up of the old dead cells, starts to happen in earnest. So most of the time you see significant drop in blood sugar and insulin levels at, somewhere between 12 and 16 hours. And then it gets even better after that. So whenever possible, I encourage people to at least like once a week, do a full 24-hour fast. But some people do experience elevations in blood sugar between meals. I usually see that not so much when they do a longer fast, but in the earlier hours. If they're used to eating every 3 to 4 hours and they don't get food, their body's looking for glucose. Hasn't switched over to being able to burn ketones yet, which is fat burning. So your body is still looking for glucose. So the mechanisms in the body that break down those sugar supplies, the glycogen that's stored in the liver or the muscles, will kick in. And some people do find that even between meals, when I try to get them to space their meals, that their sugar will go up. And it's because of that. That their body has a slower shift into burning ketones. I see that in people. I mean, you're not going to see that after 3 days because the glycogen supply is gone. I generally don't even see it go that long. I just tell people, hang in there, it's going to happen, and watch it. Now, there's cautions you have to take. If somebody's on insulin, you don't want to be helping them to fast unless they're in a place and, being supervised, because there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of things that can go wrong when there's this external insulin coming in, and you can see sudden drops in there, and then the body trying to compensate for that. So we have to be very careful with that. And I definitely don't recommend that people who are on insulin try to fast without somebody supervising them.
Did you know that you can get all 4 of the books that I wrote, Waste Away, Fasting to Freedom, One Meal into Tasting, and Freedom from Food? You can buy all 4 books and get the ebook for free. Go right now to chantelrayway.com, or you can go to Amazon. Also, I just wrote a brand new book called How to Delegate Everything But Sex. If you are stressed out and are tired of doing everything on your own, go check out Delegate Everything But Sex, and there's all kinds of freebies on the site.
Yeah, I saw that. I kind of did a test on someone, and they had done like a 20-hour fast. And when we started them, they were at like 86, and we took their blood sugar levels. They were at like 86 right towards the beginning of the fast. And then all of a sudden we took their blood sugar and it was like at 112. And so we looked at it, and basically, when you fast, your insulin levels start to drop, but it triggers a surge of like, counter-regulatory hormones. And if someone has a lot of stored sugar from their liver, then if your liver is just full of sugar, it could release some of that sugar into the blood, causing it to rise, just like on that first day. So I have seen that, because I've done a bunch of tests with people where that first day their blood sugar is trying to get stable. And so it does have some peaks. And the other thing that I've seen is that when you do, let's say someone drinks coffee with like coconut oil on their fast. Like for me, I've done extended fast, and maybe the only thing I've had was like black coffee with coconut oil, and my blood sugar, the minute I took that coconut oil, my blood sugar dropped by about 15 points.
Wow.
On doing that. So what other tips do you have for people for them to keep their blood sugar stabilized? Like does exercise affect it or anything like that?
Yeah. So first of all, there's this myth that people think that you're going to keep your blood sugar nice and steady in the 70s and 80s while you're fasting. The truth of the matter is it can go down in the 30s or 40s and you're still great. So I have people test their ketones. I've had my lowest blood sugar readings were in the 30s. And that's usually on day 5 of a fast. People are like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm active. Why? Because I've shifted to burning ketones and producing ketones. And my ketones were in the 5, 6, or 7s, which means that I've got a significant amount of ketones. And so why do I need the sugar? My body's burning the fat. Now, for everybody, it's going to be a little different. Some people, as soon as their blood sugar drops out of the 70s and into the 60s, they start to feel a little woozy and wobbly. And I think with repeated fasting, when you fast over and over again, your body starts to adjust much more quickly. And you can switch back and forth between glucose and ketones just like that, so it really helps to be adapted to be able to burn the ketones. And I think that, so keeping your blood sugar steady, I don't think is necessarily what we're after. Steady, once it's dropped, to not be up and down and up and down. Now, so exercise, you asked about exercise. So in general, trained muscle is much better at accepting the insulin and the sugar into the cells. So we want to be exercising, but if you're exercising too heavily during a fast, especially if it goes beyond 3 days, you've burned all your glycogen stores. So you don't want to burn in such a high intensity range that your body goes after protein to provide actual sugar. So to burn in the ketone range, it's a nice moderate exercise. You can do short bursts of high intensity, a weight lift, but it's just not a great idea to be doing that because you will get spikes. Actually, people think, oh, my blood sugar is going to drop way down if I exercise. And if you exercise in a good target for you, where it's not considered a stress on your body, yeah, you'll definitely get the blood sugar going down. But as soon as you exercise too intensely for the state of your body right now, and it may be the fine exercise for you when you're not fasting, but when you're fasting, it's just not good enough because you don't have glycogen stores. And so you'll see the body going into that. And it concerns me that we're burning muscle when we see a spike in exercise after day 3 of a fast.
So a lot of people might say, well, I can't do fasting because I have low blood sugar. What would be your response to them when someone says something like that?
When someone says, I have low blood sugar, most of the time they actually have a highs and lows. And because the lows are reactive, they're reacting to highs. But most people aren't testing their sugars. The second thing I would say is, unless you're testing, you're feeling like you have low blood sugar is not always low blood sugar. It's often high. And I've seen it more times than not when people feel, oh, I've got to eat, I'm lightheaded, I'm this and that. Their sugar's actually super high in the blood, but it's not getting into the cells. And the body's perceiving, oh, I have low blood sugar, I got to eat. But in reality, it's high. And I've tested thousands of people over the last years. And I found that there are people who go, oh, I couldn't believe it. Once I started testing, I realized that feeling I got when I thought it was low blood sugar, my blood sugar was 180 to 200. So you can't really tell unless you're actually testing. But if your blood sugar starts to drop too low, you've got to ease into fasting. I mean, if it truly is that you have really low blood sugar, your hemoglobin A1C is real low, and you know that you consistently have low blood sugar, then you just gradually increase the window of fasting. Low blood sugar, high blood sugar, it's all the same disease. It's all blood sugar dysregulation. And we need to adjust it by re-regulating those insulin receptors and the pancreas in terms of its amount of insulin it's producing.
So when somebody says, I'm hypoglycemic, and what are some of the symptoms they have if your blood sugar is low? And what are some of the symptoms they have if their symptoms are high blood sugar?
It could be exactly the same.
So that's why it's like they think it's low.
They think it's low. Right. So
lightheaded, shaky.
And it's because the sugar isn't getting in the cells. The sugar in the blood doesn't do us any good at all. It's not being utilized by the body. And in fact, if the sugar was going into the cells, it would naturally bring the sugar down. Right. And the problem is it's not getting into the cells, which is why diabetics suffer such severe complications of retinopathies and neuropathies and kidney problems, right? Because it's staying in the cell. It's causing stiffening of blood vessels and the retinas, but the sugar's not getting into the cells where it's needed for metabolism.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get-togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs, and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second, and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in waste away for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com HeartMath.com/wasteaway. Go there now.
So what should you do if you are planning on doing a longer fast? Let's say you're doing like a 3-day fast or a 7-day fast. Is there any tips that you have for people on your transition into that fast and a transition out of that fast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that before you undertake a 3 or 5 or 7-day fast, or longer if you're going away, it's helpful to a series of shorter fasts. So start with, how long do you usually go between eating? Is it 8 hours? Okay, let's move it to 12. Let's move it to 16. Let's move it to 18. I worked with somebody, and I usually don't do this, but I worked with somebody and guided them through a 28-day water fast. And it was a local person, so I could check on them. And he, begged me, pleaded me. So we had this very specific regime of checking in. But what he did was he started with doing a 1-day. He started with doing like a 16-hour fast. Then he did a 1-day fast. Then he did a 2-day fast. So he got his body used to it. And then he undertook the longer one. I think that before you do it, it's helpful if you start doing some sort of aerobic exercise to start to train the muscle, or weightlifting of some sort, to start to train the muscle to take up the glucose better. So do you go into the fast a little bit more trained? And so if you're going to do a fast, and when I talk about fast, I'm talking water fast. I'm not talking a coffee with butter or coffee with coconut oil fast. I'm talking pure water. Like I've gone 28 days and guided people through that. Every month I do a 5-day water fast. Every 6 weeks sometimes I do a 5-day water fast. And pretty much every day I do 16 to 18 hours of fasting. So my body has learned to adapt to it. And so I say, don't ever throw yourself in. You wouldn't just start marathon training tomorrow if you've never even walked, a city block. You gradually build it up, and the same thing with fasting. In terms of before, I would lower your intake. And then after, it's very specific about how you add food back, depending on the length of your fast.
So I was having dinner with someone last night, and they were like, I really want to fast. She's like, I just know, like, I really believe in all the health benefits. And she's like, I wake up in the morning, and she's like, I really want to do it. And she's like, but I feel like by like 10 o'clock or whatever, she's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And she's like, and I feel so bad that I'm like, I feel terrible. That's it. I can't do it. So talk a little bit about what is happening. Like, why is she feeling so bad that she's like ready to give up that early in the day?
Well, first of all, I'd want to differentiate between the emotional, psychological feeling bad and the actual physical. So a lot of people, for me, the first day is so hard. I'll say, I'm going to start my fast tomorrow. And then I get halfway through the day and I'm like, oh, I'm so hungry. I really want this. I'm going to eat today and I'll start tomorrow, right? So there is that game that the mind plays with you. It helps for me if I'm fasting with somebody, you know. I'm going to do it. I said I'm going to do it. So I've got to, grin and bear it. You feel hungry. And if you're not used to feeling hungry, it's an uncomfortable feeling for people. So that's one of the discomforts people feel. It's like that, the ghrelin's starting to produce and it's going, you need food. And most people, they just can't bear to ignore that feeling. So it depends on what this person's feeling when they feel bad. Other people, their body starts to detox. Usually not within 4 hours though, right? So you can get some detox symptoms where you get headachy and achy, but that's not usually what you're going to see at 4 hours. I'd have to talk to the person a little bit more and get the detail of what they're feeling. But for many people, hunger is so excruciatingly painful that they won't sit through it. They won't live through it. And I always talk about making friends with hunger and thinking about all the amazing things that are happening. Your ghrelin's going up, your growth hormone is going up, your body's learning to burn fat and store lean muscle, and it's cleansing house, your liver's getting a break. So thinking in terms of those health benefits. But there is a very strong psychological pain that first day.
I think the other thing that I wish I would have asked her is I should have dug deeper and said, okay, let's figure out why you're feeling bad. Because I know for me, when I was taking thyroid medicine and I was trying to do fasting, what happens is your thyroid functions at like such a higher level when you're fasting, so that then you're taking thyroid medicine, and then so it's almost like, okay, well, what kind of medicine are you taking? Like if you're taking thyroid medicine, some people take high blood pressure medicine, and so because everything starts working better when you're fasting, if you're taking those medicines, you might have to adjust your dosage for that. I know when I started doing longer fasts, when I was taking thyroid medicine, I had to adjust it. I had to take it down to like halfway because my thyroid was on overdrive. Is there any other medicines that you've seen that people take that really affect them while they're fasting?
I can imagine if they're taking any kind of cortisone medication that would affect it. Certainly, if you're taking insulin or metformin or any of those medications, really important to be supervised when you're fasting, to not just do it if you're on medication unless you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Okay. Now, what is your opinion of dry fasting, and have you ever done it?
Okay, so dry fasting, I was reading about it, I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem so good. So I was talking to somebody who'd done it and great results and talked about it, great for gum inflammation and this and that and the other thing. And so on day 3 of one of my water fasts, I decided that I was going to try dry fasting. And it was really a challenge, right? It's easy not to eat, but not to reach for the water, right? And I'd be going, oh, I need water. Oh, I need water. Oh, I need water, and not reaching for it. I made it almost 24 hours. I made it to 5 o'clock on one evening. And it was actually in the summer in Austin. I know, even though I was in the air-conditioned house, it was uncomfortable. And I don't remember the exact thing. I'm like, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. And I had a glass of water. I think it was my voice started getting scratchy and I was like, forget it. I'm just going to do it. So I made it almost 24 hours. I haven't researched it enough to really feel one way or the other. I mean, there's some definite benefits that people talk about. To me, it's like, it's counterintuitive to me, because one of the things during fasting I like to have people do is drink a lot of water, because we're flushing, right? We're releasing toxins from your cells, and your kidney has a lot more work to do with the water. The people who are advocates say, well, we get it from the cells. So we can release the extra water that's stored in the cells and be able to use that. And if there's any inflammation, and maybe if you don't have inflammation, you don't have any significant inflammation, or you're not storing fluid, then maybe that's when it is more uncomfortable and not a good idea. And maybe for people who do have a lot of inflammation and the body can find water sources, that it could be a good idea. So I'm not an expert in it, and I don't have strong opinions either way, other than my first opinion to it was like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? And the more I researched and talked to people who've done it, I'm like, oh, well, maybe. I tried it and it was very uncomfortable, and I said, forget it. I'm not. So.
Guys, I just want to interrupt for just a second, and I want you to hear Paul Saladino talk about why liver is so important. And if you don't like liver, we have another option for you.
Your ancestors were eating liver. And the reason that this sort of wisdom has been passed down is because liver is very nutritious. It's basically nature's multivitamin. If you look at the nutrients in meat, they're great. You've got zinc, you got B6, you got B12, you got some K2. But if you look at liver, it really complements what's in muscle meat. And there are many unique nutrients found in organs, specifically liver as a powerhouse of these, that are difficult to obtain outside of liver. Like meat and organs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. They're supposed to be eaten together. The easiest way to eat liver is just to do it raw. If you don't want to eat liver raw, you can cook it. But the reason that I like to do it raw is because there are unique nutrients in liver that are probably somewhat degraded when you cook the liver.
This really is like the most nutrient rich supplements that you can find. And they are amazing. I have tried them. I absolutely love them. So just go to heartandsoil.co, use the coupon code and save you some money there.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like, the big thing for me, why I'm not a huge fan of dry fasting, the only time that I'll do it every once in a blue moon, I'll do it since I basically eat in I do a 6-hour eating window, sometimes a 5-hour eating window almost every day. And so sometimes in the morning while I'm fasting, just waiting for eating window to start. So let's say I'm going to eat at 1:00. Sometimes I'll just say, okay, I'm going to dry fast until 1. But I'm not a big fan of it because I have a real problem with constipation. That's a problem for me. And so a lot of times constipation is related to dehydration in the colon. And so you want to make sure you're drinking lots of water. And so when I feel like for me, when I feel like I'm drinking more water, my stool is a little bit softer and easier to pass. So I don't want to extend my constipation issues.
No. That makes total sense. And that's, because we are during fasting, you are, mobilizing, and you want to be able to get rid of toxins in the body. The stool and the pee are the two ways of doing that, two main ways, and then sweating. So you, if you're dehydrated and you're slowing down the bowel movements and you're slowing down the kidneys from eliminating, you're not getting rid of, and you're recycling the toxins that you're releasing. So
yes. Now, what about electrolytes? Because fasting for extended periods can lead to dehydration if you don't drink enough fluids and consume electrolytes. So sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium are all essential electrolytes that can easily be depleted if you're not eating food. So what would you say, like when you're doing these extended fasts, are you eating a little bit of salt on your tongue? Are you taking some electrolytes or anything like that?
So when I do it, and quite personally, I don't consider a 5-day fast an extended fast. So I just consider it a short fast. So intermittent fasting, limited eating window, short fast, and then an extended fast, I would consider something more than 7 days. Personally, I don't, and I don't feel like I need to. When I did the 28-day water fast, I didn't do any electrolytes. It was just pure water.
Wow.
When I've guided people through, though, I had him testing things every day, and he started to have some experience of, dizziness, weirdness that happened about halfway through. And I had him go in to get his electrolytes checked and, to get a CBC and see if there was anything going on. And sure enough, his magnesium had plummeted, his sodium had plummeted, and we added magnesium and sodium to him. And boom, I was ready to you may have to quit this. No, I'm not quitting it. What do I have to do? So he did the sodium and he did the magnesium, and that made all the difference in the world. So it depends on the person. It really does.
So for you, when you're doing these extended fasts, do you see anything where you say, okay, after 3 days, this is what's happening to my body? Like I see this happening, or after 5 days, this is happening. Like I've heard of one of my friends who said she had an Achilles issue, and after 5 days of fasting, her Achilles was completely healed. So do you see anything like kind of markers that go after 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, anything?
Yeah, I wish there was a formula. But there's not. It varies from person to person. I've had people just doing, kind of a plant-based keto approach for 5 days, and the knee pain went away and this pain went away. Some people see an exaggeration of pains, in the early stages as the body's mobilizing toxins, and they kind of go to areas of old injury, and then it gets better. I haven't seen any. What I've seen is that for most people, and even for me, repeating the fast over and over, it's different. That the first day for me is psychologically really challenging, and for most people, because you're making that transition. And then the third day can be horrible in terms of headaches and lightheadedness and all that kind of stuff, because the body's doing that shift from burning glucose to burning ketones. Most of the glycogen is gone by then, and we have to shift into burning ketones. And a lot of people don't make that shift real well. And for a lot of people, the electrolytes really do help. If you have really difficult time on that third day, the electrolytes can be a lifesaver at that point, because as you start to go into ketone burning and the fat starts to burn, you're releasing a lot of the fluid that's in there, and with it, a lot of the electrolytes. And a lot of the keto flu symptoms can be bypassed with electrolytes. So that's a good thing to know. But I wish there was, some way that you can predict how people are going to feel at each stage. I find that most people tell me that by day 4 or 5, there's this sudden mental clarity, and there's just this sudden feeling of, oh, this is easy. The hunger isn't there as much, and they feel really good. But for some people that extends longer. And for some people that the misery of the third day is actually experienced on the first and second day.
Now, how much weight do you see clients losing when you're helping them on the fast? And then how much weight do you personally lose when you're fasting? Let's say you did a 1-day fast or a 3-day fast. Like, where does that weight come from?
Yeah. Again, it's variable. It depends on how much extra weight they have, how much of it is fluid weight, how much of it is actual fat weight. But I find for myself personally, the 28-day fast, I dropped 25 pounds. And I started out at 115, so it wasn't pretty. When I ended up, I was like 90 pounds, and it wasn't, I was very emaciated. Generally speaking, on a 5-day, I'll lose anywhere from 3 to 7 pounds. It depends on where I am going into it, generally around 5, because there is a lot of that water weight that's released. I've seen people drop as much as 13 pounds in 5 to 7 days. So it's very variable depending on their physiology and the way their metabolism.
I've tracked it for myself, and I only lose about 0.5 or 0.8 pounds per day. So I've done it different times and as I go longer, but I would say 0.8 is kind of right where.
Yeah, so there you go. 0.8 times 5 is about 4 pounds.
Yeah. And then I've seen the other people who have tracked it, a lot of them are ranging anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds per day. Yeah. But again, it depends on how much weight they have to lose. So let's talk a little bit about the plant-based diet. I know you're a big fan of the plant-based diet. What are some of the reasons why you're such a big fan of it? And what are some of the things that you eat on a regular basis? And do you ever feel deprived?
I'll answer the first one. The last one first. I never feel deprived. I eat amazing food. There's so many plants to eat and so many ways to combine them into delicious ways. I spend a lot of time thinking about making sure that it's balanced, not just delicious. I think that plants are loaded with nutrients, with phytochemicals, with things we've already identified, but things we haven't, so there's all sorts of things in there. I see over and over, I talk to people and they go, this plant-based thing. And then they'll go to like a fasting center, like the Hippocrates Center or the Optimal Health Institute. And they write me after 3 days and go, oh my God, I can't believe how great I feel. This is so amazing. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do mostly plant-based diet, because they see it. Most people don't want to believe it. So I feel energetic. I feel I can usually outlast just about anybody because my energy just keeps going. For me personally, it healed. I had struggled with years of food allergies and candida symptoms and headaches, and everything went away after fasting and then doing plant-based. I've been doing plant-based for 35 years. And I see specific changes. Now, it doesn't mean everybody has to be 100% plant-based to get the benefit. No. I mean, even like a ketogenic diet, like people in the plant-based community are like, that keto diet, it's garbage. It's just butter and bacon and, oil and all that. Right. It is garbage that way because you can't get all the nutrients. And I think that people do really well on a ketogenic diet at the beginning, but then they can't stick with it because the body is craving the nutrients. And you can't get enough nutrients if you're eating meat and butter and bacon and, animal fats all day. But what I teach people how to do is take a plant-centered diet, lots and lots of low glycemic, antioxidant-rich vegetables, whatever food they tolerate. We have them test their blood sugar, and then have them doing that and whole food plant-based fats, not oils, because what nutrients are in oils other than fat, but coconut, holy cow, there's tons of nutrition in coconut. There's all kinds of specific fatty acids and specific, proteins and things like that. And have them do a whole food plant-based fats along with lots of veggies. And if they want to have, some other kinds of animal protein to that or animal fat to that, they can. I have seen such amazing results in helping people to go there.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate for for just a minute, because this is one of the things, and I eat probably 70 to 80% of my diet is plant-based, but I do eat some meat. But one of the things that people say is that there's a few nutrients that are either difficult or impossible to get in adequate amounts from plant foods. And so some of those are like vitamin B12 that's found in animal source foods such as fish, meat, dairy products, and eggs. Creatine is another one. Another one would be heme iron, which is only found in meat, like red meat. So what would you say to someone who says, okay, well, how are you going to get these nutrients from a plant-based diet if they're some of these you either can't get in it or it's virtually very hard to?
It's hard. So, okay, heme iron, first of all. I work with people all the time. We do blood work. You don't need to have heme iron to have good hemoglobin. You have to have good iron status, ferret and hemoglobin, iron saturation. You don't need it. In fact, on a plant-based diet, I do like a chronometer and I check my levels. My intake is usually through the roof. So if the RDA is I forget if it's 9 or 12 or whatever, but it's the amount I'm getting is twice at least what's in there. So when you increase the level of certain amount nutrients, it's easier to absorb. So if you only absorb, let's just say you only absorb 25% of the iron that you eat, and you eat 10 grams and it's heme iron and you get 2.5 milligrams, 2.5 of it in there. If you increase the amount, you're going to get more of it, right? So I don't think we need heme iron. I think that's a myth. We need iron. We need a usable iron in the body. And when you eat it with vitamin C, which is abundant in all the plant foods, I don't see people anemic because they're on a plant-based diet. I see just as many anemic people who are on a meat-based diet as a plant-based diet. So I think
what are you thinking of some of the reasons? So for me personally, I try to eat a diet that's very high in iron. And I am still, like, every time I get my blood work, the one area that I'm still low in is my ferritin is low, my iron is low, and I'm taking an iron supplement and eating foods that are higher in iron. So what are you seeing are some of the reasons why someone could have an iron deficiency anemia with that?
With all that, right. And that's not everybody, right? Other people would be doing, I put people on somebody who comes in anemic and I put them on a plant-based iron supplement and up their iron in their diet. And I see it go back to normal in 6 to 8 weeks. So other people, it's like it's resistant. So there could be a source of internal bleeding that you do have to investigate to make sure that there isn't a reason, but there are genetic markers for all of the nutrients. And if you have a specific SNPs in your genetics, and your body's not able to process it, you're going to have to supplement. You're going to have to need it. It doesn't matter whether you're eating a plant-based diet or an animal-based diet.
Now let's talk about the keto diet. Can you do like a plant-based keto version?
Yep, I do it all the time, and I guide people through it.
Explain that. How does that work? Like what's in your diet? How do you do it, and how do you make that work?
Lots and lots of low glycemic vegetables, low sugar vegetables, the nutrient dense ones, the high water content ones, the kale and lettuce and broccoli and all the cruciferous vegetables. So all the low glycemic. Cauliflower is a little tricky because for some people, if they cook it, it does become higher sugar and can take them out of ketosis. But all of those, and then whole food plant-based fats, avocado, coconut, nuts, seeds, you name it, it's in there. Olives.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow your work.
Yeah, so my main website is drritamarie.com. I also am the founder of the Institute of Nutrition and Endocrinology, and we're going to be opening up our website on that in a while, but you can link to it from our main website, and that's for health practitioners who want to, health coaches, doctors, et cetera, who really want to use food as medicine and learn how to assess using functional assessment. So drritamarie.com is the best way to go.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this is the end of the summit. This is where we're finalizing on. Thank you for ending our show with an absolute blast. And we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.